Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Jiano, pakhair agale, ni hao ma, shuna shume, washmale, ohaya gonzaimus. Hi, hugs and hellos to all those beautiful, amazing people who are tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning on this very sunny Tuesday morning. My name is Shazad Khan, and with me I have the very beautiful Maha Maktoum. Hello, Maha. How are you? What's happening?
I'm very good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm very good, Shazad. I'm actually, quite excited. Yesterday's show was really informative.
Yeah.
Today's show is really informative. But before we even start on that, I want to ask you, because after learning about open sourcing yesterday, I did learn quite a lot about it
Was
yesterday.
it open sourcing or outsourcing?
Outsourcing, whatever it's called, dude. I don't know.
But it's always open on the both
Okay,
ends.
but anyway, the whole point of, the way technology has come into our lives. But tell me, what's made your life easier? Like when you wake up in the mornings, when you're traveling, what's the one thing you cannot do without?
Okay, other than the dishwashers and the washing machines being so, being at our houses and making our lives easier, but I think these smartphones have actually made our life more easier as well. And just because of the fact that, since I think after 2014, we have got access to 3G and 4G, and we have got 32 million subscribers for that, which is quite a huge number in a country where 60 or 64% of youth really resides. But then at the same time, whenever we have to prepare for the show, it's just a single touch. It's not even a click now, and the world is right in front of you. But thank you very much to all of those authorities who've actually made it possible for us
Okay, but how
to,
is your
go
life
through all of
easier?
that. So
I mean, we know, like,
it makes it easier for me that I do not have to run to the library every day and look for different topics or genres we are speaking about. But then at the same time, there's one more thing, and that thing is that, with the advent of technology, I think every day it is evolving, and, we are going in a pace where probably in the years to come we'll be talking about 5G as well.
Yeah.
But those authorities, I think, whenever, you achieve a milestone, you have to celebrate it as well.
Absolutely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today the only reason why we are here is that we are celebrating one thing, and I'm very happy of the fact that this particular event took place, which Maha is going to tell you about. But I'm excited.
Exactly. What I wanted to add was that, especially within a country with such a huge youth population, with the whole world moving at such a fast pace, Pakistan is really trying to keep up, and they are hosting a lot. There is a symposium that's going on within Pakistan to highlight the milestones and the achievements that Pakistan are trying to do, and also they're trying to keep up with the rest of the world, and that is the most important thing, because a lot of times we get a lot of slack for not, for keeping people in the dark and stuff. But really, over the last 3 years, this is what we've realized, that the government are trying to put things into place. It is up to us to make ourselves aware and educate ourselves, and then utilize it to the best capacity.
And they're not just letting it, they're just not making sure that everything is in place. Other than that, what they're doing is that they're nurturing after putting each and every block into that particular place as well. And we are growing as a nation, we are developing as a nation as well. And the credit goes to the government.
Exactly. So to discuss this very important event that's going on within Islamabad, we've been very lucky to be joined by very important people today who really know what's going on right now. So we've been joined...
I'll be taking a selfie today.
Yeah, during the show. So we've been joined by State Minister for IT and Telecommunications, Mrs. Anusha Rahman Khan. Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely perfect.
Besides Mrs. Anusha Rahman Khan, we've been joined by the Secretary General for International Telecommunication Union, the ITU, which is Howlin Zhao. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Ni hao ma.
Ni hao ma.
Thank you very much for coming over. The pleasure is all ours.
I speak Pakistani language.
Really?
Excellent.
That's great.
We're not even speaking it on this show. Wonderful. That's great. Besides the Secretary General of ITU, we've been joined by the Chairman of PTA, Syed Ismail Shah. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Shazad, you want to lead the first question?
I will take it up from here. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time, roundtable training courses and other, there are other things which are going on over here in Pakistan, in Islamabad, and it took place yesterday and today as well. There are quite a lot of things to be discussed, but I think taking advantage of the opportunity, I'll straightforward move on to the Secretary General. So let's highlight the importance and the significance of the event which is taking place over here in Islamabad for the very first time. And how do you think that in days to come, it will be a purpose of prosperity for all of us?
Yeah, you know that over last decade, ICT and particularly telecom developed very rapidly in the world, everywhere.
Yes.
But we have a lot of challenges. that the new things come up very quickly. I just noted that you enjoy very much these modern telecom tools,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I'm very interested to note that you recognize that these tools change people's life. But this is not easy. That you have these kind of tools available to you. Don't forget that there's a lot of efforts to bring these technologies, bring these tools to you. We have to have a good market. We have to good investment. We have to have a good system to make this happen. And then you can use that without any problems. And all this, that we have to work together to create a good environment, to encourage investment, to let those telecom operators to provide you with these new technologies. And they have to face some challenges that they need to get investment, they have to get customers, they have to work with everybody to,
Yes.
to make the best use of our tools. And technology is moving very fast. But also the market issues become more and more complicated and urgent for us to discuss. So therefore, this roundtable discussions we organized here together with our minister and our regulatory
Chairman
agency PTA, to invite experts from our regional members to come together to look together what the challenges in front of us, what we can do better, in the future, so that we have good goals, to connect the
And we are
people
hopeful.
with the new technologies be achievable.
Oh, wonderful.
yeah.
I'm going to ask you, ma'am, the ITU PTA Asia Pacific Regulators Roundtable, you invited Sir here as well as 20 other countries are attending this symposium. Why is it so important for us to highlight the fact that this is happening within Pakistan? And why did you choose that this needs to be done?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for providing all of us an opportunity to share with you some developments that are taking place in Pakistan. I need not say that I don't need to talk about it all the time, because every day you witness it in your hands. Every morning you can't wake up without your mobile phone being touched in the morning, and probably you can't go to sleep without looking at it the last thing. So therefore I don't need to say what are the benefits and what is the stickiness of the technology which is being demonstrated in Pakistan, particularly in the last 2 years. When the 3G, 4G licenses were issued, and we saw a historical and a very rapid uptake of the usability of the services by the young youth who keep on surprising us, and this surprise was even for the operators. They did not expect that the 3G, 4G uptake would be so high that they will dry out their spectrum and they will need more spectrum very soon.
Wow. Right.
So whatever is happening in the country is a direct result of the vibrant Pakistani nation as a whole, who have the appetite to learn more, to become abreast with technology and using technology for their daily lives, whether they are doctors, whether they are lawyers, whether they are engineers, whether they are students, whether they are anchor persons, media, who whatsoever. You have all forgotten how the feature phone was like now, large sets of the urban population.
Yes.
You are all moving towards smart uptakes. So that's the overall picture of how the technology advancements are necessary and how we need to continuously provide our people who rightly deserve to be given what is latest in the world. Yes. Now, as rightly pointed out by Secretary General ITU, that when we are moving and we are making the advancements, at the same time we are facing new avenues which need to be handled. So regulatory conference here in Pakistan, number one, I am very grateful to the Secretary General ITU for sparing from his busy schedule coming to Pakistan. He's a very busy person, and I had to actually invite him almost 2 years ago, frankly, to be here and to be able to find his time and to make it convenient for him to attend. This was the time when he was invited in parallel by 3 other countries. So you can imagine that how the telecom sector in itself is in huge demand, and he being the patron and in charge of the ITU remains in demand for advisory, for oversight, and looking at how the countries are taking the revolution up. Now the regulatory conference, again the ITU PTA regulatory conference, we have got the Asia Pacific region. It's my dream saying and has been that when Pakistan is making such strides in technology revolution, we should be now as a thought leader in a position to share our experiences, learn from others, sit on the table and see what are the difficulties that are accruing because of the uptake of technology, and how we can bring the businesses together to provide more, enrich more, at the same time for you to use it not just as a phone, not as a smartphone, but also a knowledge platform.
And not just to play Pokemon as well.
Yeah, but
It's
you
on the go
can
these days.
you can play Pokemon, but then you can also, as you said,
Exactly.
you have to go to the library and the mobile broadband. It's about the underserved, unserved people. For example, for my priorities, it is very important that Pakistan has to have a ubiquitous universal development. Same services which are available in Islamabad should be people in Mastong, Loralai, Zob, Sibbi, Kalat, Shangla, you name it,
Or the
northern
far-flung
areas.
areas.
Everywhere people should have the same facilities, and for which we are working using the Universal Service Fund, having the women and the girls an opportunity to be part of the technology development, how they can learn this from this knowledge platform, sitting at home, earn a bread for themselves. Socio-economic benefits of the technology advancements have to be brought to the homes.
Amazing.
And that is the regulatory conference is all about. We are talking about different training programs and how we can go further. So the Chairman PTA can definitely highlight on more training, but Pakistan is actually providing training at this point in time.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
But before we move on to you, sir, just a small question for the Secretary General, and that is, what are the activities of the ITU organization? Let's just highlight them first of all, and then we'll move on to the challenges, and then how are we coping up
training.
with that? Yes.
ITU, International Telecommunication Union,
Yes.
is a United Nations specialized agency responsible for ICT development at a global level. And ITU was created in 1865. So last year we celebrate our 150th anniversary. So this year is the first year of next 150 years. And ITU's mandate is to connect people, connect the world. And ITU has 193 member states as our government members. We also have more than 700 industry members. All the big companies are our members. And those you know very well, like Google, Facebook, Alibaba, also join us as our members. And since 2011, we opened our door to welcome academies, universities as our members. So ITU is a unique organization in the world. That we are specialized agency of United Nations systems, but we also have industry as our members. We have now academy members as well. So the membership is very, very large, and we basically develop international telecommunication technology standards to offer the best technologies to connect the people. We also take care of spectrum issues. So all the radio frequencies,
Going
no matter what kind of you can think about it, is coordinated by ITU at the global level. And ITU is the only platform where we talk about this issue. And in addition to these spectrum issues, we also take care of the satellite, the positioning, satellite filings, to make sure that there's no problems between the signals of different satellites. And in addition, since 1990s, we have a new mandate within the organizations to provide technical assistance to our developing countries, to facilitate the market development of telecom services, and to take care of many issues concerning infrastructure development and capacity buildings.
Amazing.
And in addition, you know, when we have some natural disasters, IT is there to help people, to help the regions to mitigate from the disasters. So we have a lot of things, and of course, we also pay high attention to offer technology to facilitate communications with those people, like disabled people, like the poor areas. You know that nowadays we put ourselves with a new mandate, a new focus to connect those not connected yet. We already have very good coverage of our new technologies, and we already have a very good penetration of mobile phones, and among 7.3 billion people, we have almost equal number of 7.3 billion mobile subscriptions. But anyhow, you have not only one smartphone. You may have more than one, two or
I
three.
just keep one.
You keep one, but
Otherwise
you may
fans
have
bug
another
me quite a lot
one.
of
So if
times.
you divide that figure by two, which means still half population not.
Exactly.
Exactly.
not- and our minister just mentioned that she would like to see that all this new technology be equally available everywhere to the
Exactly.
people. That is
And that is
something
what
we are
is
still a little bit challenging. That half population not equipped
Connected.
with this, and then you have the internet, and internet connections is even worse than this. That is about almost 2/3 of the population not connected online yet. So it's our dream to. We are very realistic. We don't see that tomorrow you will have everybody be connected, because you need a lot of things.
Exactly.
So that's why this discussion's taking
Yeah,
place.
and we set up goals that, for example, by 2020, we like to have next 1.5 billion people connected online.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to move on to you, sir. So in regards to the training, in regards to what we've discussed so far, trying to get everyone connected, what sort of trainings are being offered? What sort of, services are being there for people to catch up with everyone?
And how will they be helpful for all of us?
Okay. Firstly, let me tell you a few things about the overall conference. It has actually two parts. The first one is the regulatory roundtable, where the regulators from this region, and by the way, if you look at this region, and yesterday we were talking amongst ourselves, and we noted that about close to 70% of the world's population was represented in that room.
Wonderful.
Because that's what we have, big countries with big populations. I will not name them because I will miss a few, and they would probably not like it. But in that room, about 70% of the world population is covered in this region. So it's regulatory roundtable. And we have, as you can see, even our name, for example, Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, but it's not telecommunication anymore. It's information communication technologies. Especially with internet, things have changed a lot. Now that brings in challenges also. Not only for the people, it has lots of advantages. I mean, there are so many things that you can have now. You can use the internet to talk to people, you can use the internet for information, and now you can use internet for doing businesses.
Yes.
And you are changing, the young generation is changing the way businesses were done before. Everything is online, food is delivered online,
New dimension.
vegetables are delivered online, and so on. So in the first 2 days, we are talking about all these challenges. What are the challenges that these technologies have for us as regulators? Yes. For example, now you are creating so much data. All the users are creating so much data. How it can be analyzed to plan bigger cities, to plan new municipalities. How can, for example, these over-the-top services be useful, more useful for the people? How are the cybersecurity issues going to be tackled? How we can have more people financially included in the system using the mobile banking, for example. So these are the first 2 days where we talk about all these issues and how we can, together we can progress. And usually we think that all the countries are different, but when we talked to each other yesterday, most of the issues were the same. So that's the first part. In this part, we have the most senior people attending it. And then we have a 3-day program where mostly trainers from Pakistan, Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, Ministry of IT, and our industry, and some of the guests, speakers, they would actually impart training on these issues: spectrum management, cybersecurity, digital financial inclusion, and so on. And the latest technologies. For example, we are going to talk about, you may have heard this name of 4G LTE.
Yes.
Now 4G LTE, 4G is actually, technically it's called LTE Advanced. And then we move into the era of 5G, which by 2020 it will be standardized. And by the way, behind all these technologies, the standardization of all these technologies is ITU. and their name for 3G, for example, is IMT 2000, then for 4G is IMT Advanced, and for for 5G is IMT 2020. So these are all the standards that are actually written by member states of ITU together. They come together, they have technical working groups, and they talk about all these issues. So this is what we are trying to do, have capacity building, joint capacity building of the whole region. And since we are the host country, so we have to take the lead in that. And we are really very thankful, because in the last year we have been very, very active with ITU. We are back on the council of ITU, that has a limited number of countries among the 193 member countries. We have in the past also conducted several training sessions and events with ITU in Pakistan. We have also provided experts abroad in their events.
Excellent.
So now we have such a good collaboration with them, not only with ITU but many other organizations, but especially ITU is an organization which is under the UN, and all the governments are part of it. So I think it's a very useful collaboration that we are having with
So
ITU.
in this
That's
context,
wonderful.
that means that we are at par with the Sustainable Development Goals as well?
I would say that, you see, we are moving towards that. The Sustainable Development Goals, they are actually something that we are working for, all the countries are working for, and every year, every 5 years there is a review process of that, and new goals are defined. We also see whether the other goals are met or not. But now if you see, if you look at all the goals, whether it's education or it's poverty alleviation and so on, ICT has to do something with it. For example, in order to educate people in the villages, ICT is one of the main mechanism to do that.
Yes.
Providing health services, financial services, basically ICTs or internet to make it easier for you is not the internet the way we just look at websites and all. Internet, actually the way the internet works, the IP protocol, where you can have all these kind of communications and services.
I'd like to pose that same question about the Sustainable Development Goals. Where are we in par with that? Are we keeping up or not?
Yes, about the Sustainable Development Goals, these 17 goals, if you look at them, every goal will have the ICT component as an enabler. So it is ICT is an enabler of all the goals. So if you so recently in our discussions with the Secretary General ITU, this was also a proposition from Pakistan, and ITU is very kind to involve Pakistan in that process, and Secretary General ITU will dilate more on it, that how ITU can play a role with, for example, UNESCO in providing education to those people who otherwise do not have connectivity using ICT. Again, how ICT can play the role for e-health, for example. So e-health, e-commerce, education, and all other things that ICT can play a role as an enabler are actually the targets that are put in the SDGs. It is possible to attain those targets by 2030 using ICT as an enabler.
And I've got a brilliant idea for that as well.
You have an idea?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, so one time I was hosting shows for one of the service providers, and what they did, that we used to go to rural areas and into schools, and we used to interact with the students, and for somebody who was actually wise enough to use the internet, we would provide them with mobile internet laboratory, which would actually tell them and guide them different ways of life, or probably how to achieve what they wanted to do, or probably how to apply for a job and stuff like that. But that is on a very minor level as well. But continuing.
But the thing is that in Pakistan, as we have all kind of populations, there is an urban population, and then there is a rural population, and within the rural populations there are far-flung areas. Technology can reach out and bridge the gap, bridge the digital divide. So for our objective is to lay the optic fiber cable, provide the mobile broadband, complete the supply side of the infrastructure.
Okay, great.
So once the supply side of the infrastructure is complete, the demand automatically comes through it. So if you, for example, Pakistan today is ranking at number 4 in freelancing. So you have about 200,000 people from Pakistan providing IT services on the Upwork website, and you are surprising people every day.
Absolutely.
4th in e-Lansing ranking coming from an international platform again shows to you that your IT professionals, your ICT sector software developers have an impact and the capacity to sit at home without going to any office and have an opportunity for creating employment for itself and impacting others as well.
Exactly.
But I would, I think, request the
Yes, please, if you'd like to.
on SDGs,
Yes.
Yeah.
Secretary General can.
On the sustainable.
Yeah, I agree with our minister for the statement that ICT is a common component for all these 17 goals.
Okay.
And in such a way, we can recognize the importance of ICT as enablers for socio-economic development for SDGs. There is another way to express the importance of this one, that like President of Rwanda, and he told me very clearly that he would like to see the goal 18 be added to highlight the importance of ICT.
Highlight
So
the
that-
importance.
And this opinion is supported by several heads of government, several heads of states. But anyhow, the importance of ICT is very much recognized. I'm very pleased to know that. But on the other hand, the challenges set up by 17 goals is not easily achievable. Now, for example, to connect the school, to use ICT to provide to our members to greatly provide education to the children in the country. It's not the easy job. You know that we set up goals during our process of WSIS, World Summit Information Society. We completed our WSIS summit in 2 phases, 2003 and 2005. And at the end of 2005, when we came out with ideas, we said that we should set up goals to see all the schools be connected by the end of 2015.
Okay.
But today, the real situation is far. Now we again put this on our sustainable development goals. Recently, I visited Tonga, this Pacific island countries. I visited High College,
All right.
where Deputy Prime Minister studied. This high college has 1,400 students. There is no internet connection.
Oh, wow.
This is not only for this island country.
That's quite challenging. then.
In Europe, I visited some administrations. They told me that don't believe that in our country the all schools are connected.
So then
that
how
is,
do- yeah.
and then is there another one. They told me that there's no schools to be connected in the rural area because there's no school, and they need to provide education. So here, as Minister said, that ICT could help, but how can we use our limited resources to develop ICT infrastructure to bring this educations to the students in those areas and poor connected?
And exactly that's what we're going to discuss about. But
That's what we're
after a
discussing.
short break, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. This is some serious conversation and this is some serious development as well as we move on with the technological advancements. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short break. Stay tuned. Good morning.
是蓝天救援队的队长。我们蓝天救援队是一个志愿者的组织，成立于2007年，成员是15000人左右。我们参与的大型的就是汶川的救援、玉树的救援，国内近几年的大型的救援活动基本上都参与。我的梦想是蓝天救援队出现在国际救援的舞台上，体现我们大国的责任，体现出我们中国志愿者的一种责任。
Some of the world's most fascinating brasswork originates from the city of Peshawar in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Brasswork involves engraving beautiful patterns and shapes using traditional methods known as nakshi to describe sketching and kudai, translated means scraping. Swat is renowned for its woven textiles and embroidered products. While weaving is carried out in many major cities, Swat in particular is a long-established weaving centre whose blankets are mentioned even in early Buddhist texts. Swat has also retained its traditional form of embroidery, which is probably the most creative and colourful needle artwork found anywhere in the world. The enchanting arts and crafts of Pakistan.
Welcome back, everyone. And we went for a short
not,
break.
can
And
give
before the
examples.
break, we were discussing about the symposium that's taking place in Pakistan to discuss the ICT. Though it's a whole world in itself.
It is.
It's like she's like. Even yesterday, there's so much information and it's so technological. However, we've had such wonderful guests who have been able to really spell out what's going on. And we were discussing about the hurdles and about how to achieve the sustainable development goals. But I'd just like to move on to you, sir. The connecting people in these far-flung areas, as chairman of PTA, what was being discussed within the symposium? What were the what's the word? What's the
Outcomes of
remedies?
the discussion.
What are the
Yes.
remedies?
There are many challenges. First of all is the availability. How do you make the broadband available? Nowadays, when we talk about connectivity, it basically means connecting through broadband, something that gives you high speed. So that's the first challenge. And how do you provide that, whether it's through 3G, 4G, satellite, and then the fiber optic
Even
cable
television.
connectivity and so on. These are all the means. And I'm glad to report that we are progressing on all fronts. We have the Universal Service Fund that the Minister will most probably talk about, that's laying fiber in all these areas, providing 3G coverage, subsidizing that. The other challenging is the devices, the smartphones. How do you make it available at a low cost? So we need to work on the taxation on that, and also generally local manufacturing that has started here. Then the other thing is, okay, you have the connectivity, you have the smartphones. How do you make people use it? They have to have some kind of life enhancing experience using these. They have to have the need for it. They think that it's a useful thing. Many of the people, they don't have an idea of how useful it can be. Especially those who are in the rural areas, and then if you give them the phone, can they use it? I mean, they will just look at the phone and they would not even understand what icon to click. So educating them in the usage, and then there are certain cultural barriers also. Like, for example, the females are not usually encouraged to have a phone in many of the areas in the world. In fact, not only in Pakistan. So there are many challenges that we have to overcome, and the most important one, as I said, availability, and then the phones, and then life enhancing experiences, and educating them so that they use it for something that is beneficial for them. And I can tell you, once they start using it, especially, for example, let's say if you take the example of women who are at home, if they have broadband connectivity, they can do business online.
Yeah.
They can be paid through the mobile banking services. They can sell their handicraft, they can sell the food, they can sell so many things. Similarly, the farmers, they can get advice, they can find out the prices, and different things.
And she can bug her husband by calling him again and again.
And she's probably got better things to do once she's been educated. But I'd like to ask you, ma'am, in regards to connectivity, the far-flung areas, because you keep mentioning them, and that's wonderful because everyone is part of this nation. How are we going to connect them all? What are we doing?
Accessibility and affordability. These are the key components to connectivity. So we want to connect the unconnected, but at the same time we want to make sure that access is affordable as well. So this is one point that was also touched by the chairman PTA. Now, getting the unconnected is, and I keep saying on all the international platforms as well, and we are demonstrating it in Pakistan, the very fact that the mobile operators themselves contribute to the sector by providing 1.5% of their GDP as a universal service fund contribution, which is to be used for providing ICT services to areas where there is otherwise no possibility of getting connected. So this is universal service obligation as part of the license agreements of all telecom operators around the globe. It's not something that is happening
Just
only
in
in
Pakistan,
Pakistan. the important thing is that you need to be using that fund for that particular purpose and not use it for anything else. So Pakistan has made a considered decision under the leadership of the Prime Minister that this fund will be used for this particular purpose. So we are not going to the exchequer asking for money, that give us the money for laying the optic fiber, give us the money to go to the far-flung areas. What we are saying that we are going to have a transparent mechanism whereby we can spend the contribution made by the private sectors, which is an amanat of the private sector, to be used for the purpose for which it was given in the first place. So the USF is now being planned through the USF board, where the private sector and the public ex officio offices are sitting on the board taking the decisions for the usage of the fund. So I would like to share with you that recently, because it's very high item on my agenda, because I feel that every citizen of my country deserves to have the same services which are provided in the developed areas of the country. So everybody has the same right, because I feel that this development gives you an uplift in your economic well-being as well, because like the Chairman PTA just said, you can use it for working from homes and providing opportunities.
Freelancing.
So this opportunity has to come to every citizen. You know that I've started the program ICT for Girls with Microsoft and Baitul Mal, training the young girls how to code, how to do cloud computing, and they can do that from homes. So what we have done is that we have divested the Universal Service Fund for different projects, including the project that every Mauza in Pakistan, except Balochistan, which has a different standard, every Mauza in Pakistan which has 100 population will have connectivity by end of 2018. And for Balochistan, that every Mauza that has 200 population will have connectivity by the end of 2018.
Wow.
So all these projects are already approved by the board, and because this is a public-private partnership model, projects are to be deployed by the license operators who have the license to provide telecom services. So they cannot do it overnight. Everything takes time,
so it will take
because they also have to deploy resources to do that. They win the bid, the subsidy is provided by the USF, and then they roll out. It takes time.
But thankfully it's a priority anyways.
It is a priority,
Yes.
and as I'm saying, the board has already approved all the projects in this, and the scheme will come every 6 months. They will allocate new areas. Even FATA is included in this area.
Great.
So you will have connectivity in FATA. I'm working on the Khyber lot because of the security reasons. FATA could not be covered earlier, but now we are doing the survey of FATA as well, and Khyber lot has got many districts in it, will also be connected. So what should satisfy you is the very fact that somebody somewhere in the government is thinking about everybody, and they have got the plans which are approved, they've got the funding that is available, and the execution is going to be a step-by-step exercise. Once this is done, then we can, in 2018, what my expectation is that by 2020, the mobile broadband penetration in the country should be over 38%. So today we are more than 19%, and we are looking at doubling that by 2020.
That will be great, ma'am. But
That's
indeed,
amazing.
don't you think that now we'll have to put more emphasis on cyber laws as well? Because, you know, as many more subscribers are going to join the clan, and it is very rightfully said that, you know, everybody should actually have the access to all of the technological advancements we have to, right? Since we reside in the urban areas. But the challenges are going to come across to you
It's really
in an immensely different way.
You must have heard me, and I speak a lot on different forums, that in this man-made world, we have these challenges, and women come forward to solve those challenges.
Yes.
So
And we'll always second you, don't worry. We'll always second you with that.
So I frankly am not somebody who think that anything is a challenge. I feel that everything has a solution, and all we need to do is to find those solutions. So in the arena of cybersecurity and cyber crimes, and Secretary General ITU may also like to dilate a little bit on that. On the international forums and on the domestic forums, we are actually taking solid steps to ensure that the rights that you have offline should also be available to you online. So if you have a right to privacy, offline, you should have a right to privacy online.
Unless you agree to their terms.
But this right to privacy is then given by you because you have agreed to the term.
Exactly.
But the point here is that somebody has to work on a framework to get those rights balanced. And we also have to put the checklist there because the users on the internet are innocent users as well. They can make an error inadvertently. So we want to make sure that no law is made in a manner that innocent users get under the fire. So we are creating, and you know, my draft cybercrime bill has already been passed by the National Assembly. It is before the Senate. It has already been debated. The stakeholders have been heard. We have in our next committee, and soon this will be law. What's important is that we implement the law in a fair manner, and like all other laws, I would like to say, there should be no misuse of authority
Absolutely.
when we are implementing
And
that.
this is so important, and this is a problem that everyone faces all across the world. It's not just Pakistan who has to consider these things. But I'd like to ask the Secretary General, what kind of training, what kind of steps can be taken to ensure that this right laws are being created, the right implementation will take place, and there's no abuse of these powers?
Yeah. It's very important to assure the security of our cyberspace so that the people feel comfortable to use this. And this is a challenge to us. And that ITU has worked on this for the last 2 decades.
Yes.
During the first decade, we worked on technologies, on the standards for strengthening our network securities. And this kind of work was done by engineers. And we realized that it will not be work if you only work, among our engineers. And so we needed to get guidance from different part of the stakeholders to get their ideas. So that is the reason why ITU initiated to have World Summit Information Society, and we proposed that in 1998, and then it was agreed by United Nations. We organized World Summit Information Society to invite all stakeholders to come together. And then we get the news, and we get the views, we get the guidance. Then we can develop a new technical standards to meet the expectation of our new society, and then we can further offer this to increase. But however, Madam Minister just mentioned that she has present the draft laws to the Parliament for approval, and they will become laws.
Exactly.
And we have to enforce these laws. But that is Pakistan laws.
Yes.
It's not the international laws.
Yes.
Now here you have problem. When you try to fight, this kind of challenges to get global confidence for the global cyberspace, you need some agreement at the global level.
Yes.
And your laws is very much respected by your people, but it may not be accepted by someone who would not see that it's necessary for them to accept.
Yes.
And then you have trouble. And you consider this is a very important law enforcement. And while on the other hand, because cyberspace, you don't have any physical boundaries anymore.
Yes.
And then criminals can move from one place to another. Or even within the same territory, but if through different channels, they cannot find them only by your national laws.
Right.
So here, we have challenges, and ITU has worked on this, and IoT was very pleased to be entrusted by the global family to be facilitator for cyber security. And we are working on that one.
Thank you very much for the immense support anyways,
Yeah.
and thank you very much for sparing time. It was great to have you, and we truly believe that you'll always be around. ITU will always be around
Yes.
to help
We hope
us
so.
and
In
all the
50 years.
future endeavors as well.
Okay, but I have one
yeah.
you have final question?
Yes,
Yeah, go
yes.
for it.
So let's talk about the future endeavors as well, and what do you expect out of the nation?
Quickly before we
Okay,
wrap up.
yeah, I'll do it quickly. One important thing, beside the laws, we also need awareness. For example, you wouldn't walk with 500,000 rupees in your hand, even in the broad daylight.
Exactly.
So you need to have be responsible citizen and look at your own, take care of your own security also up to a certain
I
extent.
think you can hire me for that.
One of the other important thing that is very close to our heart, we have been talking to the Minister, ITU, is doing something for persons with disabilities. I think this device in your hand, this smartphone, can do a lot for a person with disabilities, especially, for example, for a person with visual impairment. it can become the eyes for that person, it can become the, it can guide that person through, it can identify objects, people and so on. And we are having a competition on that, and then we will take that to the ITU also to have our own application. The future that I see is, what the vision is that we would like to use ICTs for the benefits of the humanity, and since we are in charge of Pakistan, so for the citizens of Pakistan, we like that they have access to the technology, they use it in the most positive manner, and it can bring about positive change in their lives.
Wonderful.
If I may,
Yes,
Sure.
at one point, we talked a lot about ICT development in the world, and today we should not forget that without small, medium-sized entrepreneurs, no success anywhere in the world. And it is local SMEs who will provide local solutions to connect local community, and it's local SMEs who provide local contents to help a local community to understand the world better than any others.
Right.
But ITU, as I mentioned, we already enjoyed 150th years of history. But over the last 150 years, we have not really worked with SMEs. Right. But SME is a very important part of our business.
Okay.
Yes.
They have the rich resources of innovations. Who knows? This SMEs could become, from Pakistan, could become next Facebook or
Exactly.
Google. That
Exactly.
we have to really engage them in our business. So
Absolutely.
ITU is working.
Quite a brilliant highlight that
But
was.
we're running very short
And
of time, but
we-
if you could,
Yeah,
final
and we
words.
are inaugurating and we are making the most of the Secretary General's presence.
Great.
The Pakistan's first national incubation center for the SMEs. And for me, the socio-economic development, working for the girls and women and people with disabilities and my youth is the target, and we are going to see the results.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you
and for
so much for your time. It's absolutely
Yes,
wonderful.
and for everyone who thinks that he or she might have missed out on what we were discussing, what you can do is that you can probably log on to our Facebook fan page, which is with the name on.
Well, this morning.
On Twitter it is.
Well, this morning without
on
a G.
Daily Motion and YouTube.
Well, this morning.
And I think it's about time that we take a grand selfie as well with our
We will.
highly esteemed guests as well. Ladies and gentlemen, look after yourself. The repeat is going to be at
5 past midnight. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.